Hello, parents and students. This video is going to help you understand how honors and regular chemistry works at MAST Academy and how to fully succeed in the class. Whether your teacher is Mr. Pendola or Ms. Jones-Roberts, this video will go over the structure that we use for the classes at MAST Academy in general. To begin, let's talk about the units. In honors and regular chemistry, we're going to be covering 10 different units. Unit 1 will be an introduction to chemistry. Unit 2 will be atomic structure. Unit 3 will be electron configuration and light. Unit 4 will cover the periodic table. Unit 5, we're going to be covering bonding. Unit 6 will be naming and formula writing. In Unit 7, we will start the mathematical portion of our curriculum, starting with the mole. Then in Unit 8, we'll move on to chemical reactions. Unit 9, we'll move on to stoichiometry, which includes more mathematics, mainly Algebra 1 style math. In Unit 10, we'll finish the year looking at acids, bases, and solutions. When we look at this curriculum, Unit 1 will be used to introduce the students to chemistry, as well as give them some valuable lab skills and glassware and safety skills that they will need for all our labs in the future units. Unit 1 is different in the structure from all the other units, so what we'll be covering today will really start with Unit 2. The units, using Unit 2 as an example, are divided into different sections. Each section will be covered in roughly one class period, with then follow-up assignments strengthening the knowledge that those students gained from lectures. Most of the units have anywhere from 3 to 6 sections. Unit 2, for example, is divided into 3 sections. Section 1 will cover atomic history and values. Section 2 will cover abbreviations and ions of the elements. And Section 3 will cover some mathematical concepts in calculating atomic mass. Now, how do we cover these sections? The class structure is well thought out and been done in MAST Academy for at least the past decade. It is a true testament of our students' ability to learn and gives them every single tool that they need in order to succeed. So let's start with the sections. Each section is covered in roughly one class period lecture, with the only exception being period 1, which is only a half day. So for period 1, we will use 2 class periods to cover one section. The sections will always start with a lecture that will cover the material that will be covered in that section. Now, for these lectures, the PowerPoints are not given to the students. However, in Schoology, the students will find guided notes that they can print out ahead of time and use to take notes during the lecture if they're not strong note takers. We suggest this for all students who are just learning how to take notes or who are unsure how to approach note taking in chemistry. We do, however, allow students to take personal notes on computers or notebook paper if that's what they choose to do. We do not mandate that our students use the guided notes, but they are a valuable tool that they can use to learn the material. Once we have gone over a lecture in a class period, we will assign the students a worksheet. The section worksheets are meant to reinforce the concepts that were covered in the lecture. They are not meant as an assessment tool, but instead a tool for learning so that the student can fully understand the material that was covered. Now, section worksheets are not graded because we don't believe in assigning a grade to the student's first attempt at a new concept. And the answers to those worksheets are found on Schoology from the moment that that worksheet is given. So if a student does not understand how to do a question, they can check the answer key on Schoology And we always recommend that students complete the worksheets and then review the answers. Even though these are not graded and not submitted, the answer key will help the student fully understand the material. And if they have any misunderstandings, flag a question to then ask the teacher later. That is key. A student's worksheets are not just meant to be done once, but instead to be done, double check with the answers. And when a student identifies a topic that they are not sure or a question that they're not sure how to do, they can go and ask the teacher to explain it further. This allows us to give students as much one-on-one time as possible. We will repeat this cycle of lecture and worksheet for every section in a unit. We'll cover the materials in class and then give the worksheet to be done as homework or in class if we have enough time. During those section lectures, in between them, we will have what we call section quizzes. Section quizzes are used to gauge section knowledge, so to test student knowledge at a much smaller scale instead of the whole unit. They may be cumulative, anywhere from 1 to 3 sections, depending on how large the unit is. Usually we have 2, maybe 3 quizzes for 1 unit at most. And these quizzes are time and graded. The quizzes correspond to roughly 30% of the student's grade. We will normally have anywhere from 5 to 7 quizzes per marking period. So even though they are a high percentage of the students' grades, they will have multiple opportunities to bring up their quiz section grades with quizzes for multiple different sections. However, quizzes cannot be retaken once the student has taken them, and so they are meant to be taken seriously. Once we have covered all of the sections in a unit, we will assign the students what we call a unit review packet. The unit review packet is not meant as a first attempt at learning the material, but instead it's used to clear up any misconceptions that the students might have on the material that we covered in the whole unit. Unit review packets are graded, but they are completion graded, meaning that a student should not be afraid to try, because as long as they complete their review packet and submit it in time, they will be given 100%. If a student does not complete the review packet or turns it in not completely filled out, then they will be given a 0. There is no in-between grades. It's either 0 or 100%. Review packets and small assignments in general only make up 10% of the student's grades. They are meant to be used as a grade booster, assuming the student does what they're supposed to and turns them in completed and on time. Once the packets are submitted and the deadline has passed, we will post the answers on Schoology so for the students to review. Again, just like with the worksheets, reviewing the answers to the review packets is essential for student learning. This allows them to make sure that they fully understood every question on the packet and therefore all the concepts learned. And if there are concepts that are not mastered and questions they are not sure about the answer, it gives them a chance to ask the teacher for further explanations before the exam at the end of the unit. So unit review packets are students' last chance to get clarification. Now, in between sections and along with the review packets and reviewing, students will also do labs and projects of different kinds, anywhere from chemical labs to projects that are more art oriented, to even using VR to learn certain concepts. These labs and projects are meant to reinforce the concepts that the students learn in class and expose them to alternative learning styles. So for those students who are more visual in their learning, or students who learn more by doing, this gives them that exposure. We will have labs and projects for almost every single unit Now, some of these might take 2 or 3 weeks to complete. Some of these will be a 1 or 2 day assignment. These vary greatly depending on what topic we are covering. Now, labs and projects do fall under the large assignment category in the class, and that will constitute 20% of the students' grades. These are fully graded and are meant for students to really try and perfect their labs and projects. On the bright side, students are encouraged to ask their teachers for clarification or for help when they struggle with these labs and projects. These are not meant to be used as an assessment of their knowledge, but an assessment of their effort and for them to get clarification when their knowledge is lacking. Once everything has been completed, all of the sections have been taught, all the worksheets done, all the labs and projects assigned, and the review packet has been submitted, the students will have a final unit exam. This exam will be a final assessment of the unit for the students. They will fully assess all of the material learned throughout the unit. They are meant to be taken very seriously and can be a combination of multiple choice questions as well as free response questions that will vary by topic. This could mean anywhere for anything from paragraph answers to mathematics to drawings and chart completions. The unit exam is timed and graded, and they constitute 40% of their students' grades. Now, there will be anywhere from 2 to 3 unit exams per quarter, and so these are high stakes assessments. If a student fails an exam, it is hard to recover, but not impossible. Once the exam has been done, we will move on to the next unit and repeat this whole cycle of structure for the next topic that we are covering. Now, throughout the year and in between all of this, we will have enrichment projects and films. What these are projects and films used to expose students to scientific history and the different experiences within the scientific community. So this could range anywhere from different jobs within the scientific community, and specifically the chemistry community, to the experience of different groups such as women for Women History Month, Black scientists for Black History Month, and even for students to delve into their own background during our heritage projects. We will also expose them to history, going everywhere from Einstein to England to Percy Julian and a number of other scientists. So this is the general structure that the class takes, and everything that a student needs to take into consideration and do in order to fully attain knowledge and exposure for the chemistry classes at MAST Academy. This is also what they need to keep into consideration if they want a high score or a high grade in the class. Now, what exactly should the student do? That's a question we get a lot. What does my student need to do? Where do they need to go for the different things? A successful student in our classes are going to do the following, and it's going to vary whether they're home, in class, or for those students who need that extra help. In class, every student should be paying full attention during lectures. Lectures are their first exposure that a student will have to the subject and to the different topics that we covered. And without paying attention, they will not gain the material. Chemistry is not a sit and watch subject. It is a subject where attention and commitment to the subject are necessary to do well because it requires a high level of critical thinking skills. If the basic information is not there, the student cannot make the jump to using the critical thinking and applying the information. We also highly recommend the student take notes. whether that is using the guided notes found in Schoology or taking their own notes on computer or paper. The students will need the information presented in class to succeed in the class, and that information will not be given anywhere else outside of the lecture. We do not use any textbooks in this course, and we do not provide the students with the PowerPoints because we believe in building students that can succeed in any circumstance. And in college, most students will not gain this information. A lot of professors do not use their textbooks, do not provide their PowerPoints, and so note taking is an essential skill that we're trying to build in our students. Students should also complete their work in class if they are given time. Often enough, we have longer classes, and so we will finish lectures well before the class ends. And so students will be given the worksheets to complete during that time. This is essential time where they can get help from the teacher or from peers in order to tackle challenging questions. And so making sure that they're fully using that time in class is essential for their learning. That goes right into asking questions as well. If a student is not sure how to answer a question or they're not sure about a topic being covered during the lecture, they are highly encouraged to ask those questions. Neither myself, Mr. Pendola, nor Ms. JR are bothered by students asking us questions. And if we need to spend 10, 20 minutes with an individual student to make sure they understand the material, we will do so. Finally, they need to be able to think critically during labs and projects. It is important to understand that labs and projects are fun, but they are meant to teach students important concepts and to think critically about those important concepts. So making sure that that student is tackling a lab or project as a learning opportunity and not merely just as an arts and crafts or fun place where they'll make color fire or see different chemical reactions. At home, the learning continues. Chemistry, like I said, is not a sit and watch subject. It is something that's very hands-on, and that learning must continue at home, not just in the classroom. At home, students should complete all section worksheets and unit review packets if they did not have a chance to finish them in the classroom. They should go over worksheet and packet answers once they have completed them. The worksheets and the packets are not just for doing once, but they should be reviewed with the answers, all of which are available in Schoology. They should mark any questions that they're unsure about. Once they have gone over the answer sheets, if a student is unsure why the answer to a question is a certain answer, they should mark that question. That way, when they return to the classroom, they can ask their teacher for clarification. And again, we will spend those 5, 10, 20 minutes explaining to that student exactly how to do the work and the logic behind it, because that is going to be key to their learning. They must complete work ahead of time and ahead of deadline so they can actually ask those questions and have time to correct anything they might have not done correctly. Like I said, students are encouraged to ask questions and for assistance with labs and projects. That way they can polish them and make sure they're turning their best work. If a student completes the project or the lab 5-10 minutes before the deadline, which is usually at midnight, on whatever the deadline date is, they will not have an opportunity to get that feedback or to ask those questions, and their grade might reflect that. Students going along with that should also follow all instructions for their work and ask for clarifications if they are unsure about a prompt or a specific instruction that was given for an assignment. All of the assignments on Schoology will have detailed instructions on what to do. And detailed instructions will be given in class for all assignments. And so students should follow those instructions or they might be penalized. Now, again, if a student does their work ahead of time, ahead of the deadline, they can always ask for that clarification. Finally, in this course, all assignments, unless otherwise stated, must be submitted as a PDF file. Students will be taught, and we have a video on Schoology on how to do that, how to scan a handwritten worksheet into a PDF file and submit to Schoology. And we will spend the first week or so in the class reinforcing those skills to our students. Finally, if a student is struggling in honors chemistry or regular chemistry, there are a few things that can be done. Now, if a student is struggling in chemistry, I would not panic. Chemistry is a very difficult course, and it is a course where critical thinking is key. And so many students, especially our younger students like our freshmen, do really struggle with the concepts. However, there is a number of things that can be done. First of all, we need to look at their studying. If a student is struggling, we always encourage them to redo their worksheets and their packets once they have gone over the answers to solidify their understanding. What this does is that once they know what they did wrong, they can do the whole worksheet again from scratch, and it will solidify and really cement their understanding of the correct way of doing it. So this is something that we highly suggest, especially as we get on the year and the units get harder and harder. Number two, ask teachers to explain questions when they're unsure about them. If a student does a question and looks on the answer sheet and they're not sure why the answer is what it is, we absolutely encourage the student to ask for an explanation, to come up to a teacher and spend those 5-10 minutes getting an answer so they understand the critical thinking behind the answer. The critical thinking is what drives the answer in our course, and so it is key to properly learning the material. And so we will explain that in whatever way the student needs it explained. Number three, sitting closer to the front of the class and away from friends is something that often helps our struggling students. We do treat students in our magnet school as the young adults that they are, and so we try to avoid forcing sitting. Now, if a student is really struggling and we see that this is happening, we will suggest that they move. But distractions are the key problem that often holds our students back. And so having the maturity to say, I need to move forward, I need to maybe sit away from my friends in this class is something that we look for in our students. Unless there is a behavioral issue, we will rarely move our students from their chosen seats. Another thing that we suggest if students struggling is to change how they take notes. Oftentimes, students take notes in a way that might not be working for them, but they don't know any other way of doing things, and so they just stick to it. Oftentimes, students take their notes, but they struggle to write down the important materials in a way that is concise. And so we will often encourage those students to maybe start using the guided notes that we provide on Schoology. And once they get used to that, to those concepts of writing just the important key material, then maybe trying their hand at taking their own notes again. But changing how they take notes usually provides a change that is much welcome for the students' learning, and they start doing better. If a student is really struggling, one of the things that we will often suggest is that they attend the peer tutoring that happens weekly at the school and put together by the National Honor Society. During this peer tutoring, the student will be paired up with an older student for an hour who has already taken the course and gotten good grades in order to receive some one-on-one tutoring from that peer. Oftentimes we see that peer tutoring is a very good and strong tool for our students, as learning from a peer sometimes gives insight that they might not be able to get from a teacher. Finally, in some more extreme cases, we might advise the students hire a one-on-one tutor if they're really, really struggling with the topics in chemistry. This happens a lot of the time with students who find critical thinking more challenging, or who might just not have a natural inclination towards chemistry and STEM courses. This one-on-one tutor may be feasible or not for different families, but it is a last resort for more one-on-one help when it's needed by the student. So that is the overall tips and structure of honors and regular chemistry at MAST Academy. Again, whether your student has myself, Mr. Pendola, or Ms. Jones-Roberts, they will go through the exact same experience, ranging from the units to the PowerPoints to the work and the grading structure. This concludes this video. We will have another video that will go over how to find all these different tools in Schoology and how students can submit their work on Schoology. Thank you.